Hi, as today is part of our Business Spotlight program. I'm with Robert Haverty. And Robert, maybe you could introduce yourself, what your title and your company, and tell us what you do and for how long have you been doing it?
First of all, Kevin, thanks for having us on Action Coach. It's our second time with Action Coach, and it has been a great experience so far. So great to have a great conversation with yourself. Again, my name is Robert Haverty, and I founded a company called ICS, or Innovative Construction Solutions. I founded ICS about 3 years ago after completing my dissertation in modern methods of construction to solve the housing crisis at AIT and LIT in Limerick. So basically, I was an immigrant in America. I came back to Ireland, and I really noticed that there was a huge gap in the market for housing for my current generation, and it seems like it's starting to skyrocket out of control. To be perfectly honest, so as an engineer, I kind of started researching modern, efficient ways of building houses at a rapid, scalable way. And what we do now is we basically research the most efficient and practical NSAI approved products. And then basically we get certified and trained by the relevant manufacturers. And we upskill and consistently train people and develop people to implement and carry out the installation of their products. We're in ICS is around for about 3 years, and we've currently around 400 units built to date. I
Oh,
would say 95% of that has been government to social housing, just to give people an idea of where a lot of the market is going at the minute. Not much of that has been private, which is something that I noticed myself. So I actually undertook, we're doing our own private development of 4 units in my hometown to try and push on private development in localized areas. So basically, that's what we do on a day-to-day basis is just building lots and lots of houses
right.
for developers, and we do a couple of one-offs as well.
Fantastic. And where's your hometown, Robert?
Loughborough, County Galway.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, well, obviously topical subject at the moment to get
Very
these.
happy with the project, yes.
You might have a word with me, all Martin, or one of them about getting a move on.
Uh-huh. There's numerous issues going on in relation to the housing crisis as such. So, as an engineer, I'm quite detailed myself, and I've actually been documenting the whole process. So, I'm doing a development of our own in tandem with my uncle, who is a former developer. So, he'd have a lot of relevant experience,
Okay,
and he's absolutely amazed. Like he would have built nearly 1,000 houses in the day.
right,
And he's absolutely amazed by the shift of how complicated and how hard it has become
right,
to develop houses. I think Irish Water has been a key education experience for me about how much stress that can apply to developers and the cost of lending and the interest in lending, where mainstream banks have no interest in backing small builders. And it's all private funds that are backing even bigger funds, really and truly. And there's a small cartel, really and truly, starting to form as such around there. To give people an education experience what developers go through on a day-to-day basis. Very first thing I did the deal on our own development on a Saturday evening. I sent in my Irish Water agreement application. That will be 35 weeks to date this week, and I'm struggling even to get a response. I've made approximately 50 phone calls,
wow,
about 50 emails, and I'm on numerous developments across the country where builders are really struggling to actually get any information and get their units collected. Like being an engineer, potable water and wastewater is the essence of all life, and that's the key contributor that needs to be looked at in the immediate fact for the Irish government. Everything else can be resolved, but if we have no water, we have no life. So
well,
that
no,
is a big.
I have a client. He was doing a development builder, a small builder, and got all the planning permission, all the rest of it. The mains water is running on the road right in front of his site, and he got a letter saying that, that in principle, yes, you'll be hooked up to the water, but you can't take it as guaranteed. We'll have to wait to come back with a formal, the formal application and a formal approval, and that could be 16 to 24 weeks. And if they're saying, yeah,
And it's so basically what people need to acknowledge is the knock-on effect of that. So most developers go in with short-term game plans to have an entrance and an exit roughly 12 months.
hmm,
And they're roughly operating at about 1% a month on interest, which is a cumulative total. And then it starts to compound. And then you have your legal fees once you break that 12 months. And the big thing I've noticed, obviously I deal with a lot of big developers, And that's the big ticket item that every single developer's discussion is basically the fear of basically going over their limit with not know. Like the problem is they just don't know. They can't
Yeah.
get an answer, and it's incredibly stressful for anybody that would have money borrowed or houses sold. And like construction's all about speed, 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 and the government talk about housing, 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 but the water is and the quality of the water as well is something that really needs to be looked at and dealt with.
We're diverting a bit, but what do you think is the solution? I mean, the Irish Water are sitting there saying they need more money from.
Privatize it. So Irish Water was set up as a strategic management company. It's obviously not fulfilling, or it's not fulfilling this role. In terms of a management company, I think there's only two subcontractors that can deal with all the installations in Ireland. I was in Brazil for 2 weeks about a month ago when I was first speaking to you, Kevin. If you pay your connection fee in Brazil, which wouldn't be a first world country, you'll have water within 3 days. Um, that's the sort of level that we need to be at, I believe. We're not a big country. We have the organizational structure in place, but it's not being optimized or being dealt with correctly. Like in terms of having to wait 16 weeks before you get an email response from anybody is unjustifiable. If I did that in my own business, I wouldn't have any clients no more than yourself.
Yep.
And the government are spurring on housing, 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 but this is where it all starts. So this is something that needs to be dealt with. People talk about the planning, etc., and obviously that is a very laborious thing in itself. But the water is a humongous thing that needs to be addressed and dealt with.
Yeah, and I am getting the sense that it's only happening in the last while. Is that a fair comment, or has it been always been there?
Since Irish Water took over, really and truly, up until then, it was all dealt with the local councils. And basically, what they found with the local councils is the investments went differently. So Dublin might have put 2 million into wastewater, and Galway might have put a 2 million into potable water, and you had this uneven disperse of money and all these different systems at different places. So Irish Water was brought into place to kind of make it a unified system, but in terms of its delegation of resources, it's just not fulfilling its purpose. In terms of the organizational structure, I think it makes sense, but like they need to apply more resources in order to bring the backlog back and then maybe operate in the same manner. And then they need to, so my company is around training and certifying people in modern method construction. Why not privatize more of the subcontractor role and make it more stringent? Say, come to ICS and say, you have to do 6 months of training by certified by all these, and we'll have a site officer going around 4 different locations inspecting your works until you're deemed competent. Like in terms of carrying it out, it's not a complicated process, but somebody just kind of needs to take it by charge and actually do it.
All right,
Uh,
well, that's interesting. Interesting. So you mentioned your growth. You've been growing. What do you attribute your growth to?
I personally, I had a really interesting guy come in. I just I'm sitting in my own office for the first time today, and I love it. He said, "You're infectious, Robert." Uh, and honest to God, and I've sold a lot of stuff for manufacturers, and it's purely because I don't try and sell things to people.
Right.
I purely believe that and that alone. I'm very, very passionate about what I do. I thoroughly believe in what I do. If you want to utilize it or buy it or commit to us, that's fine. If you don't, that's also fine. I think our work speaks for ourselves, and I speak for myself. I try to be uh, very honest and very straight to the point. When I first started out, I told you I did interviews with very big manufacturer and directors, basically, in the beginning. And I asked a very experienced man, what's the best advice you give to a young man? He said, don't overpromise and underdeliver. And I basically built everything off the back of that. I under promise and over deliver. And then
Fantastic.
you kind of people like, geez, these guys are really starting to fly, or these guys really know what they're doing, etc., etc. And the big thing is talking to yourself like people like yourself and just educating people, because there's a lack of education out there in terms of a lot of things, obviously, but in terms of construction and the requirement of houses and the importance of a blue collar, like I went, like a very interesting thing I found was, I just do civil engineer, and basically starting off as a junior engineer, you might start off on 30 odd thousand a year, and then after 10 years you go to charters and you might get close to that 100, like. Whereas with a carpenter or plumber, they're hitting 60, 70, 80 after 2 to 3 years. And if they open their own company, it's exponential after that. So in terms of how what attributed to my growth, I think it was my passion and desire to create a good product. The sales followed, but I never focused on sales.
Right.
Um, I was never one for counting money. I focused on doing the process to the best of my ability. And a very notable change came in my company about 16 months ago. So I started going to developers. So we have all these relevant systems, and I do a free consultation with every development. So I go to the architect, the client, the engineer, and I say, if we build it exactly per the plan, it will cost this. But if
Mm.
I make minor adjustments to suit the system, I will save money and you would save money material. And it brought the cost of doing what we're doing down about 15%, which is a lot.
Wow.
Which is a lot for developers. So I started spending a lot of my time actually just reviewing plans and going through everything with developers and basically designing the buildings to suit the methods that we're utilizing. And since I did that, I started using a product which basically is completely self-containing for concrete. It's called Altherm ICF, and that
Okay.
made my company alone about 30% more profitable.
Yeah,
Um,
the bricklayers aren't just as pleased, I suppose, but they're very busy. Yeah.
They're very, but so Irish water is a hot topic, obviously at the minute, and bricklayers. Like every builder I talk to, I have the pleasure of not dealing with them. I have one that's doing my own development. He's doing boundary walls and everything. Delighted, couldn't say a bad word about it. But they all complain about like dealing with block layers, about how hard it is, and everything else. And I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to focus on
No,
the positive
no,
stuff. But
no.
it
And
is
it's
a very very hard trade. People need to realize just how physically
yeah.
demanding, and then you have the health and safety compliance and everything else that goes along with it. And young people don't want to carry blocks around every day. I actually was on a development in Claregalway, which is a very interesting statistic for yourself. We were building 100 houses, but only eventually built 10, and there was block work going on simultaneously to that. So we were building 10 ICF houses, they were building 24 block houses at the time. It was a trial run for the builder, and that was fine anyway. And there was four of us doing what it took 24 block layers between a
Wow.
teleporter and lads drawing bricks and mortar, etc. So there's 24 basically team of block layers building houses beside what would take the equivalent of four of us to do. So in terms of health and safety and management and everything on site, it makes things far more streamlined and cleaner.
And my understanding ICF is insulated concrete forms. Is that correct?
Right.
Right. Okay. Just for our viewers. Yes.
So I call it, it's like big boy Lego.
Yeah.
Really and truly. I used to love Connect Four and everything else. And then I was at home and I basically came across this one evening and I was like, I'm gonna have to have a punt at this.
Right.
And I did a lot of training and I travelled the whole country building it. We were in Dublin, Cork, Limerick, Clare, you
Wow.
name it, I was there and I just became fully submerged in it. And a big thing about the growth of the company as well is so we specialize in this certain sector, but we don't just abandon builders. So basically, we make sure that they get it to the end. So if they like ICF is a single leaf construction, it's not a cavity build. So there's a lot more ingress, anti-ingress details which need to be considered.
Okay.
So we go through all that with architects and engineers just to give people clarity and an instruction of what they're supposed to do. Because a big issue I've seen is people apply traditional methods to modern methods when
Mhm.
they're not the same. So that's something that I do on a day-to-day basis as well, is trying to just guide people to get a complete product.
Wow. Okay. So I know one or two of my clients might benefit from a chat with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Yeah. That'd be fabulous. If you had to start from square one in business, what would you do differently?
Absolutely nothing.
Right. Okay. That's that question sorted.
Absolutely nothing. There's been some really, really hard days and there's some been really great days. And you don't value the good day without having the bad day. And I've learned so much. Yes, I probably could have done things differently, but in terms of changing it, no, because like you learn far more from bad situations than good situations. And like what I found is I was never very practical or very technical. Like I did engineering and I really struggled with mathematics doing engineering. And that's why I set up a practical based company. And you learn so much more about yourself from having bad experiences and what to do differently. For example, you're an action coach there, Kevin. You could say to me, Rob, you need to do this, this, and this. But if I make a mistake and it costs me 10 grand, I won't make that mistake again. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, sometimes that's just the best way to learn.
Yeah, yeah, well, it became topical. There's books like Failure Way to Success and things like that.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you have to go through that to build up, and we're only like I wouldn't consider us a big business. I'm a family-run business, and I enjoy the process. Like it's not a big company structure to me. This is my day-to-day activities underneath the company structure. Really and truly, that's the way I operate it.
Yeah. No, yeah, yeah, you definitely learn. Yeah, well, any situation you win, you learn. And
Exactly, exactly.
the hard lessons you learn best, I think. Well, again, we're going into the next question. What have been your biggest learnings as an employer since you began in business?
Firstly, for somebody that's my own age that's ever considering starting out their own company, is the legal responsibility that you have as an employer. I think that's the key contributor. So you have a lot of legal requirements that you need to meet as an employer for employees, and you need to understand them, and you need to respect them, and you need to fulfill your role in relation to them, whether that be just basically having your PAYE, having your health and safety documents correct, having really good open discussions with your employees and see how they are, not just in terms of work, because we all have things going on. I find it's really good. Like we all talk. Like I say, we're a big band of brothers. Like we were after coming to the end of a really complicated, not complicated, but it was a very big development. It was a really good job for the company, and all the guys really stepped up, and everyone fulfilled their role. And we all went for dinner yesterday evening, and the lads had 2 or 3 drinks or whatever, and we all just talked. And I find like I set up the company because I worked for people before that I never wanted to cross paths with again, and I promised myself I would never lose myself along the way. So I said, if I'm going to have to beat that, I don't want to do this. So tried to take a whole different approach to it. I'm quite young myself, and I like to be vibrant and encourage. I like to use the carrot instead of the stick, to be honest,
Okay.
because I have found when I like off my own personality, if someone was very aggressive or brazen to me, like come 5 o'clock, I'm like I don't want to know you. I know I could turn to any of my guys and say we need to be here till 10 o'clock tonight. I'm under pressure. And there wouldn't even be so much as a boo. Do you know what I mean? Everyone will just honour their role and get stuck in and get it done. And I've tried to build that. And I understand as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, it's harder to maintain those personal relationships. But it's something very important to me, whether it's the guy sweeping the floor or the most skilled person that I have. Everyone is equal, everyone is the same. And I find if you respect everyone and treat everyone with respect and pay people on time, in construction, that is a very big thing. So basically, our wage structure is weekly, every weekly, and I pay everybody on a Thursday so that they have money for Friday, and so on and so forth. And that is the absolute priority of the company, that everyone gets paid on time, first and foremost. And I just found they're very simple things, but often overlooked. And people are very, what I've recognized is people in business get very stressed. And a way they deal with their stress is by letting it out on other people. I have found that, and I have been on the reciprocal of that myself numerous times, which is why I'm determined to maintain things the way we're going. Um,
Yeah.
it's a big thing, and you need to offer people a route of growth, whether it be an incentivized based, basically a bonus if they get to a certain level, or a continuous in education, or it can, if it becomes a dead end, it's very hard to be positive looking forward. So I find you have to kind of always leave something, whether if just a small gain for everybody. I feel.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I mean, there's nothing new. And I suppose it was Peter Drucker, again, back before your time, back in the 60s. He coined the phrase, or at least the one that's attributed to him, is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you get the culture
Yes,
right, the strategies are easy. Equally, if you don't, the strategies are
exactly.
difficult.
Exactly, exactly. And that's
No,
something that I've noticed that gets lost. Like people do get on not a power trip where they feel that they have to be this ironclad individual. Like I'm with my guys, like, and if there's a hole to be dug or the floor to be swept, I'll always be in the middle of it. And I know they say from an action code point of view, you need to utilize your best time and do the most critical things important. But if the guys see you sweeping the floor or whatever, they do acknowledge it as well, and it's something not to underestimate the value of, I think, as well.
yeah, well, no, but I mean, one of the things we promote basically, you have a vision for your business. That's usually a one liner. What is it you're about? Where you're
Yes,
going. Then the mission statement is probably 5 or 6 lines saying how you're going to get there. and then your core values or your culture statement, whatever it is. And it can be six or seven things, pretty straightforward stuff. But what we find is you get them right, you get everybody buying into that, and it's so much more productive than if you don't have it. And equally, as you alluded to, downloading on people is not very sensible, even for
No, but it
smart.
happens. In my industry, it's a
Yeah.
common thing, like, you know.
No, well, I mean, I've a few anecdotes. I've construction clients, various ones. The one that I think I found the most amusing anecdotes was scaffolders. The scaffolders. They're just some of the stories that would, as we're trying to get health and safety, on a guy three, four stories up, and they're spending more time showing off their tats and sobering up.
It's like, it's a hot
But
topic.
anyways, that's a whole different topic. Um, how do you balance your personal life with the demands of a business? The running.
Um, so it's something that I actually recently struggled with, I guess, to be perfectly honest. Like, in order to make it happen in the beginning, you have to go all in. You just got to push the cards. Because what I've incrementally acknowledged from a young age, and I've always tried to mitigate my risk, whether it be development or employing people or whatever. First of all, don't, if you don't have the money to do it, don't do it. Don't leave somebody else at the end of the day carrying your basket.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of basically the personal life balance, so obviously I was a professional boxer for years. I had an incredibly high level of fitness and everything else as well. Then I kind of progressively moved into employed, self-employed, blah, 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 blah. And I noticed that my ability to train and maintain good habits became a lot harder purely because of my energy. I'd be completely zapped by the end of the day, to be perfectly honest. So in terms of balancing, in the beginning there was none. It was all this, and I think most entrepreneurs will say the same thing. Now, in the last 6 months, what people don't recognize is the significant build-up of that, and you do need that because I actually suffer from alopecia myself
Oh, wow.
um, about a year and a half ago, which was a really interesting thing for myself because I thought I was really good at dealing with stress and everything else as well, but as I learned from myself, I obviously wasn't, and I needed to find a new way to deal with it because my body was obviously telling me something that I wasn't acknowledging. So I started. I met an incredible girl about 2 years ago, and we have a great life together. And I just started exercising more, eating better, and just taking 1 hour a day. No matter what day of the week it is, I take 1 hour a day to just basically exercise or meditate, as you said, or just de-stress from everything and just completely switch off. And since that, I feel incredible. It doesn't have to be 6 hours and 8 hours, but I do find 1 hour a day is incredibly important. And to me, it's not even like work. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could be working at home there at 9 o'clock at night, and my dad says, "Would you not switch off?" And I'm like, "Sure, what else would I be at?" Like, do you know, I'd be down in the pub, or do you know what I mean? And like, I think I heard a great saying from the guy that owned Amazon or whatever. It's not about work-life balance. It's about having enough energy for both. If you do something that you love, you'll always have energy. So
Interesting
that's kind
point.
of how I treat it. And in term, it is important to switch off, and it is important to put your health first, I think, and not let things slide. You know, you were traveling a lot from your job, and I do travel a lot from my job, and I find that the hardest part because you go into the shop to get a bottle of water, and then you might grab a snack, and then you might have eaten it. So I think to form an organizational structure, literally a tick the box exercise, especially for men, I find. Because men kind of tend to go like we seem to let ourselves go a little bit more, like especially in construction, like because lads are up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they're gone at 6, and they get home, it's dark to dark, and then they're so exhausted, all they want to do is sit down and rest. So it's very important to isolate an hour, whether it be just be for cooking or cleaning or meditating or organizing, 1 hour a day, just to set yourself up for the next day, and you will get a compound growth on that. I've noticed myself.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. No, at my stage of the game, it's even more important.
Yeah, and I'm learning that too. I was like
Yeah.
telling you, I'm 29 in June, and it feels like a midlife crisis into 30. So look, it is what it is.
Yeah. I've got a couple of years on you, yeah. But
Mhm.
what I find, our definition of a business is a commercial profitable enterprise that works without you. which is the
Yes.
whole concept of systems and getting right people doing the right things at the right time and running. So the virtual circle is, you have a business, you've got a system, you've got a team that'll run those systems, that'll look after your customers, that'll look after you, and that's the kind of circle we look at. Uh,
Mhm.
and to I see over the years I've seen too many who didn't take that advice or didn't live it, and the health issues are at your stage you can get away with it, but it is toxic. It does build up, and then I've seen it too often where the result is catastrophic, really.
It is absolutely, and it's amazing how quickly it can compound. And then, like my own brother is a principal of a school in China. Actually, he's a very educated individual, and he always says to me, don't spend your health gaining your wealth."
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
which is a very important thing because you will give it all back to get one piece of your health back. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And he
yeah.
used to always say that to me, and I was shocked. You know what I mean? But now it's really starting to dawn on me. And the quicker someone acknowledges that, I think the better.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got clients now who are in the wellness game and all of that, and they would have been in much more stressful setup. And now they're promoting, they're actually turning it into a whole business, which is fantastic. We're helping them with that. But the whole Tai Chi, if you want to take some of the Chinese from the
Yeah,
Chinese, and again yoga and all the rest of it. But there's a huge demand. They got a huge demand for this. They just trying
we're
to keep.
living in a much more stressful environment. Like we have technology constantly in our face all the time. And that's a huge contributor to my generation and the generations to come as well.
Oh
And a
yeah,
big thing is kind of just actually acknowledging that, and just everybody's different in how you deal with it.
yeah,
But I found a big thing for myself is literally just start writing it down. And
yeah.
for anybody that is experiencing stress, I was talking to a very, very experienced foreman or whatever, and I was like, I have this going on, this going on. And he's like, "Where'd you write it down?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Sure, it's in your head." He said, "Put it on a piece of paper and it won't bother you anymore." And it's as true as the word I've ever heard. Do you know what I mean? You can have all these things going around, but if you actually put them on a piece of paper, it's a lot easier to deal with them.
Oh yeah, and that's the bedrock of say the coaching that we do. In their subconscious runs our body, 90,
Yes.
95% of it, and there's the little voice in your head talking is only about 5 to 10% of the action, the conscious mind. And at any given time, we get about 2 million pieces of information through our five senses: touch, sight, smell, taste. But our subconscious deletes, distorts, eliminates 99.9% of that. Okay.
Yeah.
And as blokes, it only allows through about 5 ± 2 bits of information, as they call them. Now, for the females, it's more plus, and for the guys, it's more -2 because we've got smaller hypothalamus at the back, our traffic lights of the brain.
Right.
And we can only hold so much in our head, no matter how good it is. So to write stuff down and to get the information that you need, set goals for yourself, which is the key or foundation stone of the coaching, is once you write it down, the information you need for to deal with that comes through your five senses. It's allowed through by your subconscious. And I mean, it's over millennia. The way it developed was, the guys were out hunting, and so you went after two squirrels. You didn't get any. You had to focus on one thing. Whereas the females were back at the nest dealing with multiple threats. So
Mhm.
they had to deal with this and their brain developed differently. Now, female sense of direction sometimes could be a challenge, but that was again one of the drawbacks of being stuck in the nest. But anyway, again, we digress. I think we kind of covered this, but what qualities do you look for in employees, and how do you foster a positive and productive work environment?
So I give a very straight answer, and I think it basically controls everything. And the word is interest.
Okay.
Um, One thing I kind of really look at is basically the level of interest that someone demonstrates during an interview with me is a big thing.
Hmm.
When I first started in America, basically, a guy used to always say to me, "If you're interested, it will be easy," and it's the truest thing in the world. Like a young guy walking, starting out with us, and I do hire a lot of younger people because our day-to-day activities are they're physically demanding, they're fast paced, it suits a younger person because the day goes fast, etc., etc. But if someone shows a level of interest in what they're doing, I think it just comes naturally, well, no matter what you're doing. And I really, really acknowledge that from a point of view with young people. And not so young people. Like I'll have a guy there and ask like before like I'll ask them to watch a video and then I'll ask them, well, how would you do this or how would you approach that? And you can see how they technically understand things without doing it as such and how they would approach it. And I've learned that as well. You can learn a very experienced thing of somebody that has never done something because they're looking at it from a completely different perspective to
Oh,
you. And I have learned a lot. Like I do that a lot. So if I'm hiring someone, I'll ask them to watch a tutorial or a video on what we do, and then I'll meet them and I'll talk about them and like why they want the job, and I just see how determined they are for it. And Joe, I'm dating a beautiful Brazilian woman myself. I have 3 Brazilian employees at the minute, and I was in Brazil recently myself, and I just see their attitude towards work and their interest is literally just, we're here to do our job, we're here to get paid, and we're here to go home, and whatever development we can acquire along with it. So the big word is interest, and every employer would say that, I think. Do you know what I mean? If you have someone that's coming in dragging their feet, not wanting to be there, don't be there. Go find something else because all that's going to do is create a stress level for the employer as well, which might get reflected back on you. Do you know what I mean? And every employee does need some form of income, etc., etc. We only get one life. If you're not there, somewhat interested in what you're doing, or if you're dragging yourself into the door every other day, there's always an opportunity to do something different. Always. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's a few sayings come to mind there on that. I know one of ours is that hire for attitude and train for skills. If the
Yes.
attitude is right, and but again, if you have your culture defined, you have your vision and mission all out there, you attract in people who are attracted by that. And then, you see is there a fit when you're interviewing with that culture and why is there a fit? Then it becomes so much easier to train for the skills or whatever else,
Correct.
you
And
know.
like as you said there, even like so I'm building that type of culture. And it's easier now for me to go and headhunt experienced people. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because I have a really good, enjoyable culture. Do you know what I mean? I can go and headhunt experienced people. That's something I've really recognized in the last 12 months for myself as an employer that I actually really do have a good atmosphere to work in and people enjoy it. I've never had an employee leave me,
Right.
which is a great statistic. And I've only ever fired people on a Monday morning as well, believe it or not. But I know I've never had anyone leave me, and I've noticed now that I've say foremen that are contacting me, are ringing me from big companies like that are interested in what I'm doing, and would I have a role for them? And I have the resources to provide them with a good wage structure for it and everything to match their skills. So one leads to another is what I'm trying to say. If you, as you said, if you build the culture with the right type of attitudes, then you can attract even better than yourself, really and truly.
Absolutely. And it's, no, I couldn't agree more. It's one of the things that foster in virtually all of my clients. Um, and as I said to you, with the background, as I explained to you before in accountancy and investment banking, etc., I thought that stuff was all a bit fluffy until I actually got into it. And now it's 80 of my coaching is getting that right.
Yes.
And the rest is, a 180-degree turnaround on that one. Which for all for the better, thank God.
I know if you keep looking at the bottom line and you forget what's creating the
Exactly. Yeah.
line will fail. Like like I deal with people. We're not dealing with e-commerce or it's not
Mm.
the Nasdaq. This is real people. Like you know what I mean. And I find if you're not too greedy, like you have to like money consistently flowing, and if you basically let it flow, it will continue to flow.
Yeah, I think we call it the law of precession. If I chase money, money gets farther away from me. But
Yes.
if I focus on giving, helping people get what they want, money comes to me at right angles.
Yes,
You
and I
know.
have found that with life. I keep saying it's better to be born lucky than rich. I've got a couple of good breaks, but one thing I've recognized as well, and this is a little bit off topic, is the most common person to give you a chance is a complete stranger.
Right.
So don't like honest to God, like some people like if you're small, not degrading anyone in the local town or anything like that, but they don't want to see you get too big, or they might be a bit cautious of letting because they don't know what you're capable of, blah blah blah. But I found strangers will just give you that chance, so
Yeah.
don't be afraid to put yourself out there and be forward with people, like because like the worst someone can do is say no, I guess. You
Yeah.
know? And
That's
that's all, like, and they might have a few words to follow that you might like, but sure, at least then,
yeah. It's a straightforward thing. It's amazing how many people don't kind of get that. And I suppose
exactly.
maybe just to round off, what are some common misconceptions about running a business, and how do you address them?
So basically, and I going to hit the nail on the head with this one. So my generation constantly talk about passive income.
Okay.
Okay, I'm yet to determine a very good method of passive income. And to give anyone in Ireland a very good educational tutorial in about 2 minutes, I'm going to save them some time. So everyone keeps talking about real estate, real estate, real estate. So if you get into renting a property, being a landlord in Ireland, best of luck to you, because if you have any sort of a decent job, you're at 36,000 euros a year, you're hit your 20% and you're breaking into your 40%. So anything you make after the fact, i.e., your landlord rentable income, you're taxed at 53%. So say you're getting your mortgage on that property might be 1,500 euros a month. You're getting 2,000 euro a month, all grand, and making 500. You're actually losing. You're out of pocket probably 750 euros a month every single month, and that's why you have a tenant. While you have a tenant, and the tenancy rights in Ireland are extreme as well. Like you can have a tenant that can move in and they can make your life a living hell. You might not be able to get them out. Like a lot of people completely underestimate that fact about rentals and how you need to be set up for that and the tax implications of it. Like the only economically feasible way of utilizing passive income for me has been through a pension. When you put properties into a pension, and then you're obviously taxed at 0%. But I am 28 years of age right now, so I'm not going to get to dividend that for 32 years later, or the people after me will get to utilize that. So in terms of running a business to make passive income, when they figure it out, they might send me a message so I can follow it. But it's an interesting topic, and a misconception in Ireland is real estate. And anyone that is considering doing it really needs to look at how they're going to deal with the income from it and talk to someone like yourself with the relevant experience that can show them how to manage this money and mitigate against tax. Because then you can set up a limited company and you can basically get taxed at 20% and then another 20% after the year rolls on the surcharge. And then there's a very interesting topic which basically just I got my book and I was like, nah. So you can only take 10% of remuneration from say the company relative to rent as well. So say if I want to produce 100,000 euros income after tax for myself, that's a million turnover from a rental property before the revenue start querying what I'm doing. So in terms of making it an economically viable business or for myself, that was a very big misconception that I'm glad that I went and got the relevant training and like someone off yourself to understand not like that this just isn't something that interests me at the minute.
Yeah, well, yeah. I was a landlord for 20 years, both in London and here in Ireland, and I was glad I took some training on how to set it up and how to do it. And I think that the big crash back in 2008 was people were buying for the increase, whereas if you structure it right, you should be, there's a price you can pay. And
Yes.
after that, 1 cent over that, it doesn't make sense. But to have a positive cash flow out of that property, if you structure it right, you can do it. But again, that's a whole separate topic, I suppose.
And a really interesting thing to add on, again, and a lot of what I say is around the younger generation, Kevin. Just like if I can save someone a piece of pain that I endured, I will. Like we live in one of the lowest trading taxed countries in the world. There's a reason all the big companies and the pharma companies are here. Like you're taxed at 12.5% trading, which is some of the lowest in the world, which is a fantastic way of dealing with it. And then there's really good tax incentives there based around pensions. So for a young person in Ireland, I think it's really important to look at a pension. If you, a company structure, and I don't know how anyone makes money in Ireland without a company structure, to be quite honest, because of the way the personal taxation is set up. And then there's a lot of incentivization towards pensions, which I think is something that needs to be looked at, and Irish people or younger don't think about it a lot. The way I explain it to people is if you look at a mortgage, turn it in reverse, and that's your pension. And it's the best math that you will ever see if you want to make money. So that's really all I have to say. The misconceptions are that you think it's a lot easier than it is. It's a full time from the first I would say first 1 to 5 years, it's your life. If you want it to click, it's your life for the first 5 years. Then after that, you build. You can do it faster, obviously, but if you're from the very raw beginning, it'll take 3 to 5 years before you can start getting the correct systems and the experience in order to be able to take a step back from it at that stage, like
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I know that, well, like I do a lot of wealth coaching. So the purpose of a business is to generate cash flow so that you can invest. If you're looking to do legacy wealth or pension, pensions are one because they're so tax efficient,
Mm-hmm.
in spite of meddling by various governments.
By
And
the way, I wonder why that happened. But
Yeah, the other one is property, but I'd often, from a business point of view, the first thing I get a business owner to do is make sure he owns his own property because he does know the tenant. And commercial let is much better. Now, yeah, like everything else, you need training on it. You need to look at it, and the market changes from year to year. You know,
correct.
pre-COVID, the office blocks were being built left, right, and center. COVID came and went, and now we've got office blocks all over the place. So.
And
Uh,
people have a very interesting thing they keep asking. I see on a lot of forums whether the cost of construction is going to come down, and the answer is no.
No
Uh,
way, not a chance.
the answer is no. Unfortunately, we probably suffered 10 years of inflation over the space of 12 months and maybe double that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Particularly in construction, it was very notable.
in construction because we're creating a valuable asset all the time, and the value of money is constantly depreciating. And once you stand back and recognize that, it becomes a lot easier to plan and understand, I guess,
Listen, Robert, it's been great chatting to you.
Thank you, Kevin.
I think we went a few minutes over the 15, but anyway,
A few minutes. I tend to do that. I do apologize, but it's all
no,
whenever you come
no,
on, but it's all been good.
there's fascinating stuff in there for our viewers. So listen, again, thanks very much.
You're very welcome, Kevin. If you ever need anything, feel free to reach out. I might end up reaching out to you personally myself and kind of getting a proper action plan done for myself and the company as well.
Well, as I say, what we'll do is we'll get this done and dusted, and I'll send you the link, and we could set up for another chat about your business, sort of thing that we can have a chat about down the track, and be delighted. Yeah, I found what you've been saying there has been fascinating, and it's been great for our viewers. So thanks again.
You're very welcome, Kevin. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.